y la Unidad Educativa Bilingüe Interamericana dan la más cordial bienvenida al simposio La Educación Clásica como Medio Pedagógico en el siglo XXI. Para dar inicio, invitamos a las palabras de bienvenida a Fernando Ortiz, decano de la Facultad de Filosofía, Letras y Ciencias de la Educación. Le damos la bienvenida.
Muy buenos días con todos, con todas. Para mí y para la Facultad de Filosofía es muy grato darles la bienvenida en esta mañana a este evento que nos convoca una fusión de intereses, una unión de trabajo entre dos instituciones, la Universidad de Cuenca y la unidad educativa, el Colegio Bilingüe. Apenas tuvimos la visita de los delegados de la unidad educativa bilingüe. Dijimos sí, porque este debe ser un espacio, la universidad debe ser un espacio de la diversidad, de la inclusión, de la diversidad de pensamientos en torno a este tema de la educación. Todas las miradas que signifiquen propiciar, suscitar reflexiones alrededor de los mecanismos de aprendizaje de la sociedad contemporánea deben estar presentes en nuestra universidad. Me alegra muchísimo además que nuestros exalumnos de la facultad están presentes acá como líderes de tan importante institución educativa como la Unidad Educativa Bilingüe. El rector de centro de educación importante, exalumno de nuestras aulas de la Facultad de Filosofía, también tanto de la carrera de Cultura Física, es un personaje que ha seguido dos carreras en la Facultad de Filosofía y también en la carrera de Matemáticas. Y también nuestro querido exalumno, también muy aprovechado estudiante de la carrera de Historia y de la carrera de Periodismo, a Boris Morocho, que también siempre fue un destacado estudiante y está ahora liderando muchas iniciativas en este importante colegio. Eso me alegra mucho, que los exalumnos estén bien posicionados, bien ubicados y liderando espacios de trabajo en el área en la que se formaron. Felicitaciones al rector, a Boris. Y nada, decirles que saquemos el máximo provecho, esta vez también dar la bienvenida al doctor Perrin, que es el conferencista invitado, a quienes queremos escucharle para sacar también las mejores lecciones de estas experiencias y de estos planteamientos. Bienvenidos y bienvenidas. Muchísimas gracias.
Agradecemos las palabras de nuestro decano. A continuación, hace su intervención el magíster Giovanni Romero, rector de la Unidad Educativa Bilingüe Interamericana, a quien recibimos con la más cordial bienvenida.
Muy buenos días a distinguidas autoridades de la Facultad de Filosofía de la Universidad de Cuenca. Muchísimas gracias a todos los que están aquí presentes. Comunidad Educativa Bilingüe Interamericana, queremos agradecer la oportunidad de poder intervenir en esta ponencia sobre el tema de educación clásica. Como todos ustedes saben, el Estado ecuatoriano garantiza la educación de los niños y niñas y adolescentes por medio del sostenimiento fiscal, fiscomisional y particular de las unidades educativas. La misma Constitución de la República del Ecuador, en su artículo 29, y eso anhelamos que ustedes recuerden, señores estudiantes, de la Constitución de la República, y ratificado por la Ley de Educación, y también se complementa en el reglamento de la LOI, establece que el Estado garantizará la libertad de enseñanza, la libertad de cátedra en la educación superior y el derecho de las personas de aprender en su propia lengua y ámbito cultural. Las madres y padres y sus representantes tendrán la libertad de escoger para sus hijos e hijas una educación de acorde a sus principios, creencias y opciones pedagógicas. En esta última parte de las opciones pedagógicas, toda institución educativa debe tener la responsabilidad de armar, proponer su propia propuesta pedagógica en el marco de los principios educativos centrados en la actividad y participación de los estudiantes que favorecen el pensamiento racional y crítico, trabajo individual y cooperativo del alumno en el aula, que conlleva la lectura, la investigación, así como las diferentes posibilidades de expresión. Ustedes, estimados estudiantes universitarios, futuros maestros, futuros educandos, futuros directivos de instituciones educativas, ustedes estarán proponiendo modelos pedagógicos que han aprendido e investigado a lo largo de su carrera estudiantil universitaria. Ustedes son muy importantes y vitales para que la educación en el Ecuador siga y se fortalezca. Es ahí que los modelos pedagógicos tenemos que conocerlos, analizarlos y proponernos. En la Unidad Educativa Bilingüe Interamericana, luego de años de análisis, investigación e implementación, está proponiendo esta pedagogía clásica como modelo educativo. En su currículo y como propuesta al Ministerio de Educación en un proyecto de innovación curricular que está asociado a los cambios significativos y novedosos que generen la transformación en el sistema educativo local a un nivel macro, micro y meso a lo largo de este tiempo. En estos años, al investigar a grandes pensadores científicos, profesores, personajes ilustrados del pasado como Martin Luther King, C.S. Lewis y otros, en su gran mayoría, han sido instruidos en la pedagogía clásica. Interesante. Esto nos sirve a nosotros para pensar y analizar y decir, si eso sirvió en el pasado, ¿por qué no puede servir en el presente? Esta educación, queridos estudiantes, está alrededor del mundo, pero también, sobre todo en los Estados Unidos. Es ahí donde el día de hoy, en nuestra alma mater, en mi universidad, muy agradecido por lo que aquí los docentes me impartieron sus conocimientos, queremos proponer en cambio ahora y poner a su consideración y análisis, ¿sí? En base de la pedagogía, aportar el conocimiento y la sabiduría para impartir en las aulas de las instituciones los criterios que hoy les vamos a proponer en este espacio. Adicionalmente, tenemos un convenio interinstitucional entre instituciones, Colegio Bilingüe, Universidad de Cuenca, en las carreras, ¿sí?, de pedagogía, pero en especial en las carreras de inglés. Este es nuestro tercer año de alianza estratégica, donde ustedes, estudiantes, pueden optar a través de sus directores de carrera a la institución bilingüe. Y la Universidad de Cuenca, analizando en el mercado de las instituciones educativas, han visto con agrado, han analizado el potencial que tiene el bilingüe en la carrera del bilingüismo. Es por eso que esta conferencia será en inglés, para que ustedes, queridos estudiantes, se nutran tanto en el área del inglés, pero también en el área pedagógica. Con ustedes, a continuación, doy la palabra a nuestra compañera que le va a dar la presentación al doctor Christopher Perrin. Muchísimas gracias y que tengan un buen tiempo, por favor, en este día. Gracias.
Agradecemos al magíster Giovanni Romero. A continuación presentamos el simposio La educación clásica como modelo pedagógico en el siglo XXI. Para ello invitamos a Gloria Ayala, docente de la Unidad Educativa Bilingüe Interamericana, para que nos ayude con la presentación de nuestro expositor de esta jornada, el doctor Christopher Perrin. Bienvenido.
Good morning, everybody. For me, it's a pleasure to be here, and I am honored to be the one presenting Dr. Christopher Perrin. Dr. Christopher Perrin is an author, consultant, and a speaker who has specialized in classical education. He is committed to the renewal of the liberal arts tradition. He co-founded and served full-time as the CEO and publisher at the Classical Academy Press, a classical education curriculum, media, and consulting company. Christopher is also a consultant to Carter public, private, and Christian schools across the United States. He is the director of the Alcuin Fellowship with the Institute for Classical Schools and the former board vice president of the Society for Classical Learning. He has published numerous articles and lectures that are widely used throughout the United States and the English-speaking world. Christopher received his BA in History from the University of South Carolina and his MD and PhD in Apologetics from Westminster Theological Seminary. He was also a special student in literature at St. John's College in Annapolis, Maryland. He has taught at Messiah College and Chesapeake Theological Seminary and served as the founding headmaster of the Classical School in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania for 10 years. He is the author of the Greek Alphabetic Code Cracker and the Greek for Children, and the co-author of the Latin for Children series, all published by Classical Academy Press. Christopher has a passion for classical education and is a lover of goodness, truth, and beauty wherever it is found. So please welcome Dr. Christopher Perrin.
Thank you. Once again, thank you. Uno, dos, tres. ¿Escucha? Okay. Well, good morning. It's a pleasure to speak in English. It's a pleasure not to have a translator right next to me for everything I say, although Gloria has been an excellent translator for me the last few days I've been here in Cuenca. I also got to spend a couple of days in Quito, and I've just been enjoying this country so much. You have a very beautiful country. It's so beautiful. And the fact that you have 4 rivers, cuatro ríos, in one city, so I just hope you know how beautiful this country is. I bring you greetings from los Estados Unidos. In the United States, for about 44 years now, something interesting has been happening in the world of education. Because a lot of us have begun to, we had some experiences that were difficult and challenging with our own children and our own education. And we got curious about history. We wanted to know what the great ideas of education have been throughout history. It's so common today in this modern moment for us to be dazzled and excited and attracted by so much of the good new things that are emerging rapidly before our eyes. Never before has culture been changing so quickly. And those of you, you've been born into this. You've been born into a culture and society of rapid change. And maybe it feels normal to you, but it's not. It's something new in history, that the way we think about business, the way we think about learning, the way we think about being human, the way we think about interacting with one another is changing very quickly. And it's kind of exciting and also overwhelming. Sometimes we feel like we're on a carnival ride or we're at an amusement park, and there's all kinds of opportunities, and there's this and that, and there's something exciting here and there's something exciting there, and we go this way and that way, and it's exciting, but where do I find a place of stability? Who am I really? And in the midst of all of this change, we seem to also have a hunger for something permanent that doesn't change. Now, the 4 rivers here in Cuenca, they're moving all the time, but they're also the same. There's this idea in philosophy, one of the great ideas is permanence and change. Things change. We observe change. We observe time passing. But isn't there something that never changes? Isn't there something that is timeless? Could human nature be timeless and constant? Or is human nature changeable on the basis of a decision that we would make tomorrow? What is it about you that is constant and won't change? We began to ask questions about that. Think about AI, for example. This is something new, right? In the last 2 years, some of you have ChatGPT on your phones, right? Isn't it remarkable? I was having a conversation with ChatGPT. because now it has an audio version where you can just, and I was getting curious about World War I in America, and I began to just have some conversation, and it just, I was like I was talking to a polymath professor who knew everything about World War I. And so with my smartphone, can I be smart? Do I really need to go to college to study history when I have the whole world in my hand? Do I even need to really study English? Because I've got Google Translator. What if in 5 years every student has Google Translator in their ear or something, and you can speak any language, and in real time you would hear whatever someone says in your own language, and then all of you who want to have a job teaching English, well, you better find something else to do. Who knows what's going to happen? But what is happening fast. So where do I stand? So I want to recite to you a poem from one of our great American poets, Walt Whitman. Do any of you know Walt Whitman? So he was a great poet. We Americans love him. And it goes like this. A noiseless, patient spider. A noiseless, patient spider. I marked where it stood on a little promontory, isolated. I marked how it explored its vast, vacant surroundings. It launched forth filament, 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 ever unreeling them, tirelessly speeding them. And you, O my soul, where you stand, isolated, surrounded, detached, in measureless oceans of space, ceaselessly musing, venturing, throwing, seeking the spheres to connect them, till the bridge you need be formed, till the ductile anchor hold, till the gossamer thread you fling catch somewhere, O my soul. He compares his soul to a spider, sending out filaments, those webs, making his web. Filament, filament, filament. It launched forth filament, 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 ever unreeling them, tirelessly speeding them. And isn't that like you? Aren't you that spider? Isn't that your soul? In the midst of all this change, aren't you sending out a filament, a filament, filament? Aren't you ceaselessly musing, venturing, throwing, seeking the spheres to connect them till the bridge that you need be formed? Till the ductile anchor hold? Till the gossamer thread you fling catch somewhere, O my soul. This is a beautiful poem about us seeking to make connections, trying to find meaning, trying to find an anchor in our life, trying to find a place to stand in measureless oceans of space. Now, if we had time, we could talk about the beauty of this poem. Just think of the cadence. Measureless oceans of space, ceaselessly musing, venturing, throwing, filament, filament, filament. Do you hear how the cadence of the poem is reinforcing the meaning? Filament, filament, filament. So this is philosophy, and it relates very much to education. Because in education, at the highest level, what are we seeking? We're seeking connections. We want to see how things work together. We're looking for a kind of harmony. We're looking for a place to stand in our life. And so in America, we began to go back and ask the question, what did education used to be before the carnival came to town? And what we found was interesting, that for about 1,500 years, there was a philosophy of education that was slower, that was more contemplative, that was more reflective, that wasn't constantly changing, although it wasn't afraid of change, but it wasn't like the amusement park. And that it was a philosophy of education that emphasized the need that every soul has to make connections. And that is what wisdom is. How many of you are philosophy students? Raise your hands if you're studying philosophy. Well, it's the College of Philosophy, okay? So, philosophia, and Sophia is this idea of over time, over a long time, of love, loving truth, loving wisdom, that you would start to fling out those threads, that you would start to connect the spheres, that you would start to build a bridge of meaning, and that you would find a place to stand that would not change, so that you wouldn't just be carried down the river. And so many of us feel today like, although the change is exciting, we get in the river and off we go. And who knows where it's going to take us. And sometimes we make decisions rashly without giving it much thought. But there we go. And I hope the river's going to a good place, because that's where I'm going, because it seems like that's where everyone is going. So philosophia is this idea that there is that we could acquire. Oh, muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. You will be the president. She's running for president of her class. I'll vote for you. So you can see that this recovery of this model of thinking about education is thinking about the high ideals. But what's interesting about philosophy is that when you think about the highest things in life, they are actually very practical. When you get the first things right, all of the second and third things start to find a particular kind of order. So, those of you studying to be teacher, here's one principle that relates to these big questions. Every pedagogy, this is true of everyone, I believe. But when we have question and answers, maybe you can push back against this. But see what you think. Every pedagogy assumes an anthropology. Show me how you teach, and I will be able to discern what you think a human being is. Because the way you teach reveals what you think a human being is for. When you stand up to teach somebody, you're teaching a human being. Well, what is a human being? And what is a human being for? So your philosophy of humanity, what you think human beings are for, will determine how you teach. So if your philosophy is that you know what human beings are for? Pleasure, comfort, have a good time while you can. Eat, drink, and be merry, because tomorrow we die. This is the only life. This is the only life we have. It's the only carnival ride that you'll be on. So why don't you have a good time while you can? If you really believe that deeply, it will affect the way you teach, because you will want these students to live out their life that same way. Find a good time. What can you do tomorrow? What can you do tonight? Or you might think the purpose of a human being is to work. Find good work, an economic end. You want to have some dinero to do the things you need to do. And so economic equality, economic success, economic strength, this brings liberty to a person. So teach people to have jobs. You'll teach that way, and your teaching will be training. You will be training, you will be doing job training. And that's what you'll think education is. Education is to train somebody to get skills, to get a job, to get money. Done. But where is the noiseless, patient spider? that's launching forth filament, filament, filament. Even when he has a good job, even when she's working as a lawyer, even when she's making good money, is not her soul still sending out filament, filament, filament? Ceaselessly. I'm not going to vote for you for president. Ceaselessly musing, venturing, throwing. No matter who you are, no matter what job you get, whatever you're dreaming of, think about what you're dreaming of. Where will you be in 5 years? Where will you be in 10 years? You're dreaming of something. Don't you think you will still possibly be like that spider sending out filament, filament, filament? Aren't you still seeking the bridge to connect them? I don't need the amplification. I can project. Okay, that sounds good. That's good. Okay. I haven't even gotten there. This is just my introduction. So, your every pedagogy assumes an anthropology. So, maybe you haven't given this much thought, but what is your anthropology? What is your anthropology? It's very practical. Because whatever you think human beings are for will lead you as a teacher, and you will teach according to your anthropology. So it's very practical. Philosophy, from one perspective, is the most practical art of all. Answer the big questions first and well, and everything else follows. But in this time of constant change, it's hard to even find a little bit of time to think like this. So in this tradition that we're calling classical, it emphasizes the need for contemplation, to have time to actually reflect and think. And it works it into the curriculum. So, of course, we have to learn skills, and that's very important. But we also need time to gaze and reflect and answer the big questions. And so about 44 years ago, Americans, and some others in other countries too, began to just ask the question, what did we used to do before 1900? Because for about 1,500 years, do you know what we called classical education? We called it education. What I'm describing to you was what education was considered to be. But around 1890, there was the beginning of what we now call the Progressive Revolution. It was in the middle of some remarkable and exciting events. Think about 1890, 1900, 1910, 1920, World War I, the invention of the airplane. What would it be like to live when somebody invented a machine that you could fly in? And in America, we had thousands and thousands of people coming to the United States. You know, we're a land of immigrants. I'm part French, I'm part English, I'm part German, I'm a mutt. Who knows who I really am, right? And this is just true of America. The airplane was invented, men and women. I know it's hard for you to think that that's exciting. You know, you're excited about ChatGPT, but you can fly. You can fly. So at this time in the world, people are amazed, like, we can fly? And then we invented the automobile. And in America, we have a lot of land. We love our cars. We can drive everywhere. We love to drive. And Henry Ford figured out how to make cars cheaply so that even people with modest incomes could have their own car. They might not be able to have an airplane, but they could have a car. This is amazing. And Henry Ford learned how to engineer the car in an assembly line and do things quickly and efficiently. And at this time, we also invented psychology, the study of the human mind. And we began to think that maybe we could study the human mind like a science. And we could unlock the secrets of how we actually learn. And we could create a program of teaching and learning that would guarantee predictable results, just like we could guarantee if you do certain things on the assembly line, you get a car and it actually works. So what if we could engineer a car, if we could engineer an airplane, could we do that with a human being through the study of psychology and sociology and mental testing? And what if we were more efficient in the way we taught? What if we started to gather students together in big buildings in grades and move them along like an assembly line with experts building those students as they moved, and so that at the end we would have a guaranteed product that we call a graduate of the University of Cuenca or any school. We can make human beings. We can make you. We can engineer you. The right application of technical methods will guarantee that we'll get a particular kind of person. We call this progressive education. That's not all that it is. And by the way, it's not all bad. We did learn a lot of things. Psychology helped us to understand a lot of things about how the human brain works, how we memorize, what makes us remember things, and it can affect our pedagogy, so it affects the way we teach, so that we can get better at teaching. So some of these things were actually very helpful to us. But in general, we started to think of education not as an art. Oh no, it's a science. Right application of method, guaranteed results. How's that been working out? How's that been working out for 125 years? Are we getting the guaranteed results? We keep changing the methods. We're experimenting. Well, maybe if we change the curriculum this way, maybe if we teach this way, maybe if we use the technology this way, maybe if we test this way with standardized tests that are normed across all people, and then getting feedback, regular feedback, data-driven education, research-based pedagogy, we can get to the point as we refine our methods until we actually can produce what we expect we could produce. We've been trying that for 125 years. But let's keep going. Let's keep going, right? So in modern schools, often curricula and pedagogy based on university research and experimentation, et cetera, is changing regularly. So that you graduate with an education degree, you start teaching using the methods that you were taught, and then about 5 or 7 years later, some expert comes to your school and says, oh no, the research shows now we need to do something different. Let's try this now. It's going to work. And we change and we change. This is why many teachers after 5 or 7 years quit. Because they're being told to keep changing what they do. And they start feeling like they're not teachers, they're technicians. And then they have people observing them. Oh, you're not doing it the right way. Change this, do that, change this. And everything changes again. And people go, you know what? I'm not even teaching students anymore. I'm just following a script. So this was happening in America too. It's happening all around the world. So now I've been speaking kind of sharply about modern education, but I want to say again that there's much good in it too. All right? And so anything that's good, we always want. And when we say classical, we don't mean old. Like, oh, let's just do something that was really old. That will be fun. Maybe we can dress up like they used to 200 years ago. And we're certainly not going to use an iPad, but we could use a wax tablet. No, we don't mean old like that. We mean going back to anything that's human, that has always worked, that is perennial, that is constant because it's human. And so we learned as we studied about the liberal arts. And we're ignorant about these things. We don't know the past. We have amnesia, and I think I'm speaking for most of you when I say we don't know our genealogy. We don't know where we've come from. We have certain habits, certain ways of speaking and being that have been passed down to us, and we're not even aware of it. The most obvious one is your language. Language is a tradition. Somebody passed it on to you. Your parents were constantly correcting you. You listened to them. You observed them. And you acquired, as a gift that was given to you from all of your family members in the community, you acquired Spanish, this beautiful sounding language that was derived from Latin. See, Spanish is just bad Latin spoken very fast. That's a joke. Un chiste. Italiano también. Y portuguese, same. but you come from Rome. Your tongue, your lingua comes from Roma Antigua. That history is in your soul. It's in your palabras. It's part of you, whether you know it or not. You're Roman. And so am I, because 50% of the English words we speak come from Latin. 50% of English. About 20% from Greek. But about 80% of the technical vocabularies in the various professions like law and medicine come from Latin. So if you learn Latin, you're studying all these languages at the same time. So we learned this when we started to read the history of education. And we started to realize, oh, there's much good in modern education, but there's all of these riches. It's like somebody opened this door and it was a treasury. Like, why didn't somebody tell me about this? That I could learn Latin, and if I learned Latin, I would already be learning Spanish and French and Italian and Portuguese and the technical vocabularies of law. Why didn't somebody tell me that I could learn Latin and that it would be so good? Well, about 125 years ago, the modern educators said, you know what? When you study Latin, it's only good for Latin. But they were wrong. And so we're going back. We're going back in the sense of correcting a few mistakes. We're not going back in the sense of, let's wear old clothes and use wax tablets. We're going back in the sense of looking at what we could do that is always human. So when we say classical, we mean that which has enduring excellence for all times, for all humans. And I'll just mention, el tiempo pasado, it's crazy. So I have to kind of wrap up here so we can have some preguntas, because we have to end at 10 o'clock, right? At 10? Is that true? No. 11. No, just kidding. Okay. So there's much that I would love to tell you about the liberal arts of studying grammar, logic, and rhetoric. These three arts of mastering language. It give us skills that apply at every time and every century. Grammar is a study of how to read well with precision and accuracy and clarity, and to speak and write well with precision and accuracy and clarity in every language. And it gives you access to that treasury of great books, so that you could even read Principia Mathematica by Newton and understand it, because you knew language. And logic is the study of how reason works, so that you can make good arguments and see what is true and prove what is false and demonstrate what is true and protect yourself against the logical fallacies that are coming against you at all times. It's the art of verbal self-defense. It's a study of logic. We talk about critical thinking. It's logic, my friends. Study logic. But you haven't studied logic because it's been taken out of the curriculum. And then there's rhetoric, which is the study of how to speak in ways that are not only accurate, clear, and precise, but in ways, and not only in ways that show what is true, but rhetoric is the art of studying how to speak with beauty, to give pleasure to the people who hear you. Have you noticed that you can win an argument and not change somebody's mind? Have you ever been in a conversation with a friend where you silenced your friend and they had nothing to say about your argument, and you proved your point, but they did not change their mind? Rhetoric is the study of how we help to change people's minds. Cicero said it's to move, to instruct, and to delight. And so as we're recovering these arts, they're liberal because they set us free. They give us libertas to do anything better, any job better. And it's so much beyond just getting a job. If you have these liberal arts and the skills that come from these liberal arts, you can make your own job. You can make jobs for other people. And no matter whether you become a plumber or a professor, if you have these liberal arts, you'll do it with excellencia, virtue. And over a course of a lifetime growing, reading the great books that now you have access to, you'll slowly grow wiser because you love wisdom, because you're a philosopher. And that's the end goal of the education that's classical. It's virtu. sabiduría, asombro, sofía, prudencia, y elocuencia. And so in America, we've been recovering this, and we're beginning to see some lovely fruit. We still make mistakes, we're not great at it, and we also blend it and look to harmonize it with the best of modern and progressive education, especially the study of cognitive science and cognitive psychology. Many new insights are coming to us about how we learn and how we teach from cognitive science. So everything that is modern is not bad. And not everything in the past is good. But there is much in the past that is good that we have forgotten. And now we're starting to remember. Muchas gracias. ¿Y sus preguntas? And you can have my PowerPoint presentation for later. So please, what's on your mind? And what maybe isn't clear to you, or what maybe irritates you a little bit, like, I don't think that's right. Love to hear your hard questions. Are you curious about anything? Is there anything else you would like to know?
Yeah, I was thinking more of the classical ways of teaching. I mean, what did you actually meant by that? Because for us, usually just being, classical learners would be like following instructions out of a book.
No.
So yeah, that's what I'm.
Okay, great question. Yeah, that's why the word classical and what it means, it has many connotations, and sometimes people it has acquired sometimes a negative connotation. Like classical means just follow, read the script, but no, it's when properly understood, a classical education is trying to help people become excellent. It's trying to it's formation. It's formation in virtue and wisdom and eloquence. So if it's human formation, we want to seek to do that in ways that delight and move them. And so it involves a combination of what we would say active learning, where you're actually doing work, and restful learning, a combination of the contemplative life and the active life, the vida activa y la vida contemplativa. In the classical tradition, these two things we tried to bring them in harmony. So, of course, there's times to be active, and you ask students to do exercises, and you repeat, and you learn that way. But there's also times to gaze, and to contemplate, to linger, and to ponder. And especially students get older, like around 15, to have discussions around a table that are relaxed with a good book in front of us. And we want to savor the good things that are in the best books, like eating a really good meal. And if you rush through a really good meal, it's a bad use of your time. Yes, see.
Good morning, Professor Perrin. Thank you very much for that wonderful talk.
My pleasure.
Just following up with the question that the student made, you mentioned the contemplative aspect
Yes.
of education.
Yes.
And our students, since you can see their ages, they might not understand quite well what is that. You mentioned a little bit about it,
Yes.
but would you give us an example of what could it be having a contemplative activity in the classroom, please?
Okay, I'll give you an
Thank you.
example. A noiseless, patient spider. I marked where it stood on a little promontory, isolated. That was a kind of poetic exercise where I invited you not to do work, right? It wasn't academic work. There is academic work that where you're moving and you're trying to do exercises, connect things, understand things. You're using in medieval terms your ratio, your reason. You classify. You're trying to make connections and cause and effect. You're using logic. But there's another word for our mind besides ratio, which is intellectus. And intellectus is that part of our mind that receives truth this way. Es un regalo. This is when, like, you're listening to music, or you're looking at something beautiful. You're in the river, you're looking at the river, and you're thinking about the river and everything that's in it. And some thoughts and ideas, they kind of come to you as a gift without working. That's contemplation. It comes from the Latin con, or cum, and templo. It means to be in a sacred place, a set-apart place and space where you remove distractions for a moment, where you turn off your phone, right? Or you put it away, or you don't even bring it to the table. And you have plenty of time, and you have unhurried time. When do you have unhurried time to consider, to consider something, to weigh something, ponder something? The word consider comes from the Latin siderus. Do you know what siderus means? Stars, a constellation of stars. So, twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. You have stars in your curriculum. Yes, you have the real stars up above, but the good things that you want to just gaze at without working, they exist. Because everywhere there's good things in the cosmos. The Greek word cosmos means ordered beauty. The whole cosmos contains beautiful things. You have cuatro ríos. You need to contemplate them and enjoy them. This is a gift to you. But there are rios and stella, astra. They are all over. But we get so busy on the carnival ride that we can't get off of the carnival ride. And so in the classical tradition, we're trying to return to a harmony. We want both of those things. We want to be active, but we also want to rest. So active learning and restful learning. And so then, if we had more time, the question would be, what other kind of exercises could we do in a class when you're teaching English? Because if you're a teacher, I know that's what you're thinking. Okay, what do I do on Monday morning? Okay, if I'm teaching my lesson, how do I do that? But if you deeply think, and I could give you illustrations if we had time, I could give you more illustrations, but I started with one. Have your students memorize a poem. Have them memorize The Noiseless Patient Spider. But you memorize it first. And let it live in you. And then it comes out of you with radiant joy. And when the students see, oh, she loves that poem. She has it memorized. She can recite it. You know what your students are going to want to do? They want the same experience. And so then you say, I want you to memorize. And you can help them do it as a class. Repetan. A noiseless patient spider. I marked where it stood isolated. See, you do this with, and then maybe you have hand motions, etc. And then that poem is possessed by your students. It becomes a part of them. So you don't just want to read the poem. You want the poem to read you. And I love that poem, and it reads me. It speaks to me. It tells me something about myself. So that is a star. That's one of those stars. So if you deeply think about this idea, you will invent the right pedagogies. You will know what to do. And so I'll conclude with this. Your philosophy, your anthropology will lead your pedagogy. What do you believe a human is for? You will teach according to that view. And if someone asks you to teach in another way, you should revise your teaching. You should be true to what you know is wise. So, it's 5 after 10.
So we need to close because I know you have classes to go to, etc. But I thank you for your kind attention, and I wish you the very best in your study of English. I wish I knew English half as well. I wish I knew Spanish half as well, or a bit as well as you know English. So it's been a great pleasure. Thank you very much.